Hello and welcome to the video. I'm Jimmy the Mower and today we're going to be servicing this Impax IM800I inverter generator. Okay then, so what we'll need for this is an NGK spark plug. It's actually a 1223 or CMR6A, okay, that's the one. They're tiny little spark plugs. It comes with some generic one in here, but we prefer NGK if we can get them. We need some oil. Now it does recommend 1040 in here, but we've been running our generator for a long time, so we go straight with SAE 30. It's more of a 1030 mix, so a little bit thicker than you have with when it's new, because it's slightly worn. They're not fantastic engines in here, and because it's slightly worn, use some thicker oil and it just prolongs the life of the engine. So that's that. An impact driver or screwdriver, whichever you've got. Some pliers, because the spark plug on there is so difficult to get out, it's unbelievable. One of these for taking the oil out, unless you can just tip it upside down and empty the oil. And a little jug, that's just to measure how much oil comes out and see how much we can get back in. I can't remember the exact figures, but we'll work that out as we go along. Okay, so you'd have had this apart before, I presume. If you've seen the video of me setting it up for the first time and doing a quick review on it, we take it apart, we put the oil in and stuff, but we never mess with the spark plug. The spark plug is round here in this little compartment, but you have to take a bit more off to get to it than that. So what I'll do first of all, I'll just take out these screws here, turn it round like that, and I'll take out the screws over on my side, and we'll take out the screws that hold in the spark plug case and cover there. I'll do all that and I'll put all that to the side. Right then, I've taken the covers off all the way around. This one here, you'd have had to do this one when you first got the machine, and you put your oil in there. That's where that goes. Turn the fuel to off. It's best to service it when there's no fuel in it. However, there's still some in ours. Just make sure that the lid's on tight and it's on the vents on close. We got it round this way because this here is the air filter. This is the easiest thing to service. We just take off the cover there and take that out, and in there is just a generic piece of foam. That's clean. It says on the instructions that you should wash it every 50 hours and do whatever. If you need to wash it, wash it. If it's covered in dust and grime, wash it out. Don't put any soapy water in there really. We just try and flush them through with a bit of water, but they need to dry. And I can't stress this enough, for a minimum of 24 hours, preferably 48 hours if you can, because anything that's slightly damp in there will get drawn through and into the engine, into the combustion chamber, and it's going to cause you untold problems. Okay, so if you do have to wash it, make sure it's thoroughly dry, and I don't mean just it's dry, I mean really dry. So that goes back in there. Basically, if you tap it on the bench and there's no dust come out of it, which there isn't in ours, they're running pretty clean conditions, our machines, so there's no bother with that. We know that that works and that's fine, so we can put that back on. That's the easiest bit done. And just tighten that up. Right, so that's the air filter, easy peasy. Right, next then we'll move on to the oil. Now this is the oil drain plug, the oil filler plug. It's everything for everything in this machine. So all we do with this is take this out. Now we're quite lucky here. We got all the gadgets and gizmos. We've got one of these to suck out the old oil, right, which is great. We can suck that out there straight away. If you haven't, you can tip it out. Use a little container to pour it into, tip it out and get it into there. Again, best without any fuel in, because you can have to tip it right the way over to get all the oil out. And then when you're putting the oil back in, if you buy yourself one of these bottles, you can tip it up and it's got a pouring spout on there and you can pour it in, and it makes it a lot easier than trying to use a funnel, because when you use a funnel, it builds up in the funnel and it might be full in there. You pull the funnel out and there's still oil in the funnel to drop in and you overfilled it. Okay. The eagle-eyed amongst you'll note we need to clean this off before we poke that into the engine. That's it's come from down the mowing workshop, and it needs to be cleaned off before we put that in. But that's how we suck the oil out, right? So I'll clean this up and then we'll suck the oil out of there, and then we can show you putting some oil back in. Right, let's suck the oil out then. The great thing about using one of these is when we take the oil out, you can see roughly how much you've actually got out, and it's not so much guesswork when you put it back in. It doesn't take all the guesswork out of it, because no matter how much oil a machine ever states that it holds, you'll never remove all the oil out when you service it. Never. It doesn't work like that. Right, take that out. Oh, put it in there. It doesn't matter if we spill it on this table. It's a special engine repair table, so when we're stripping down engines, doing oil changes and stuff, anything that we spill falls on here, and we've got some grooves over there, and it flows down towards that side over there and goes through some holes and into into the drawer underneath. So we've got a container to keep it all in, which is really handy. As you can see, that's just sucking up air there, so I'm gonna have to tilt the machine over slightly, push the air back in, see if we can get any more oil out. No, I think that's about it. Right, I think that's about it. I'll just have a quick look. We'll tip it up, see if there's actually any in there. I can't see any, and I can't hear it sloshing backwards and forwards, but I can hear the fuel sloshing backwards and forwards. So we'll tip it over. I'll put this in and see if we can get any out for the last time. Put one of these underneath. An expensive tilting block. Right, so that's that. No, that's it. That's as much as we can get out of there, really. So that's that. Right, I just get the bench cleaned up a little bit, and then we can put the clean oil back in. Right then, so off camera we did tip it up a little bit more. We spilt some fuel out, we got a little bit more oil out, but there's still not a lot. It's about 175 mil or thereabouts, so I've put it in there. So we're hoping to get more or less the same back in there, depending on how it is. The problem with these machines is when we put the dipstick in, have the dipstick there, we put the dipstick in and you don't screw it in, you just put it in like that, right? And you've got low there and high is that little bar, right? And there's not much of a difference between those. You might put like 150 mil of oil into the machine, and then the last 25 mil just covers up and covers that point, okay? So you got to take some in and out to get it. But we know that when you start the engine up, it circulates round. And if this hasn't been run for a while, I don't think ours has been on for a few days now, a lot of that oil can drain to the bottom. So when you start it up, it lubricates everything. The oil goes round the engine, and then you check it again and it's low. So you put a little bit more in to make sure that it's all working fine, which is good. That's what you should do. But with this, it's a real faff, because every time you're checking the oil level, you're having to get the case on and off and whatever else. So it's not as easy as you would think, you know. We've got the cover there that goes over the top. It would have been prudent for them, wouldn't it, really, to just put a small hole in so we could access the oil filler cap from there and just check it, you know, on a sort of regular basis. If you've got a mower engine, every time we go out with a mower, we check the oil levels before we use it, just to make sure, you know, they're where they need to be. So why this is any different, I don't know, but it means undoing the 4 screws and putting them back on every time you check it. But hey, oh, that's a design fault. You know, you paid less than £200 for this generator, and it's doing what you want. You can pay a lot more for them, so taking 4 screws in and out isn't the end of the world, really, is it? Right, now putting this in, 1030 oil, 1040 oil if you want some thicker. Straight SAE 30 oil is what we're putting in. the machine's run for a few hours now. We're using a bit thicker oil. It works well. This is Morris oil. We use it in mowers, generators, pumps, all that sort of stuff. And it is designed for this sort of machine. There's low friction on startup and stuff. So we'll put that in. We've got just over a litre in there. So if I put in 100 mil or 150 mil to start with and see how we get on. But you can see the difference. In fact, if I move this in, you can see the difference in that dark oil there. And then if I tip this up so you can see how light that is when it goes in. I don't even see that difference, but my goodness, there's a lot of difference in there. So the darker the oil, the dirtier it is mainly. So we'll put some of that in. Might have to have a bit of jigging around. Right, I think I've put just about enough in there. Right, I'll just check it with a dipstick now. Try and get it on a flat surface if you can. This table's sloping a bit because we've got an engine table there. Now I've put that in and it's barely got the dipstick wet, so it's saying it needs a little bit more. So I don't know how it can need more when we've put more in than came out, but there you go. That's how it is. Right, it does need a little bit more. We'll put a dribble more in and see how that works out. So put a little bit more in, put that on top. You don't screw it in, by the way. It says that in the instructions. You don't screw it in, you just rest it on the top, and then that'll tell you where you are. Right, it's coming up on that stick now. So what we'll do, we'll just leave that in. I'll have to screw it in for a moment. We'll leave that in for a few minutes, and we'll turn the unit round and we'll do the spark plug, because the spark plug's a pain. Everything with this machine is pretty good. Yeah, the oil's a bit fiddly to get at. The air filter's really easy to do. It's easy to start up, run. This spark plug, we've changed it a few times, and my goodness, it's tricky. So I'll turn it round. We might have to bring you in a little bit closer to see exactly what we're doing, but I'll turn it round and we'll have a go at that while the oil's sort of settling in. Okay, so now we're on to the spark plug. There is the spark plug. That's how it's connected in on the top, right? So we need to pull this off. We take that off, and then we need to get a socket in there. The socket we use, if I look round, is a 16mm, right? So it's a 16mm socket, and it fits on top of the spark plug. It's very difficult to get that out of there. We take this side panel off here as well. So we've got the side panel off and the top panel off to try and get that out. Now, I'll have to change camera angle again. I'll have to get in there myself now with a socket and undo it. It's a bit difficult and a bit tricky, so I'll just film that, and we'll cut the audio in case there's something on there that shouldn't be on there, okay? Well, that was more difficult than it needs to be. Let's just put it like that. Right, it takes some getting out. You're in there with fingers, needle nose pliers, 16mm socket to start it off. But that's what it comes out like. If anybody's unaware when they're watching this video, we've been through a pandemic worldwide. We use NGK spark plugs, CMR6A. Evidently, last time we serviced this, we couldn't. We got an identical replacement, a torch spark plug. So CMR6A again, but they're just small ones, quite common in really small engines and streamers and things like that. So there's the new one. Now, The only difference is between the new and the old one, they're like exactly the same, the thread's the same and everything when they go in, right? The only thing that is actually different is there's a little compression washer that runs around on there, and that compression washer is thicker on this one, the new one, than it is on the old one. It's like thin on there and squashed down. That's because when we put this spark plug in, we screw it in with our fingers as far as we can. Bit difficult with this, but you screw it in as far as you can with your fingers, and once it's in, you tighten it up with a socket or whatever you can get on there, and you tighten it up, tighten it up, tighten it up until it just about stops. And once it stops, you can just give it a quarter twist more, and it will just compress that in there, and it makes a great seal. Okay, that's what it's for. So when you're putting spark plugs back in, it's no bother. We know this one works as the generator was working. So if you want to just clean that up and put it on the shelf, put it in the box, right, and write used on it, and you'll know that if there's ever a problem with this, you can put a working spark plug in, right, and you'll know that if it still doesn't work, then you've ruled the spark plug out. But otherwise, they're disposable items. There's no real use for that once you've put a new one in, right? So I'm going to put the new one in now, put that in, and as we say, it is quite easy on these. A lot of them, they're at a funny angle. You're going screwing up or screwing down or wherever. This one is pretty much straight down, so it's not so bad to get in. You've got little chance of cross-threading it, but when you put them in, just move them backwards and forwards so you can feel the grooves, and you'll feel the grooves and you'll feel it start to drop in and start to bite. If it gets tight in the first couple of turns with your fingers, it's not sitting properly. Take it out and start again. And with these NGK ones, they're shiny on there. That's actually a nickel coating, right? This little bit here has a nickel coating on there. And when you put that in, that acts as a lubricant and goes in through the threads. All right, so it does make it a bit easier. So it's worth paying a few pence more for the NGK ones. They do make a difference. Right, we'll put this spark plug in, and then we'll turn it back round and we'll just check the oil level and see how that's looking. That's the spark plug securely in place then, and the lead back on, and that's nice and snug. Now we can put the cover back on over the top there. That should just slot in, and then we can tighten it up with a screwdriver. There we go, that's in. And then we don't really need any access to this side anymore. We know that that's on and secure. There's nothing really to see in this bit, so we can put this cover back on, and I'll put the exhaust cover back on as well. I did take that one off just to show you around the back. If you ever need to access this panel, it just does unscrew like that. So we'll put these two back on, and then we can turn it round to the business side of things, and we'll just have a quick look at that before we start it up. Now we're at the business side of things. Look, we can see everything in there. We've got our starter rope here, our oil filler. We did put a drop more oil in there as it was. I think the full capacity is probably about 250 mil, I think. Probably between 200 250 mil. Just double check that, but just keep dipping it in and out. Leave it to rest, let it settle out while you're doing the other bits and pieces. Because really, with these, once you've put this cover back on, it's so cumbersome to just keep getting it off, check the oil level. It's just a bit of a pain. So make sure you get it right before it goes back in. But that's that in there. As you can see with ours, we've got fuel still in there. That's up in the bulb. The air filter's back on and where it should be. And just have a quick inspection of everything. Is everything tight? Is everything as it should be? There's nothing out of place. There's nothing loose, right? It all seems to be good in there. But before you put this cover back on, what I would suggest doing is just firing it up. Now, not necessarily in a shed like we are today or in our workshop, but we have got some extractor fans in here, so there's no real build-up of carbon monoxide or anything. But when we turn it on, we've just got to go through the sequence, okay? We've got run and choke, so you want to put that up on choke at the top. We've already pressed that a few times to make sure that the oil's gone, that the fuel's up to where it should be. Make sure this vent on the top is set round to open. That needs to be on open there, if you can see that, because otherwise you cause a vacuum within the fuel tank and it'll cut off. Eco needs to be on off, and the engine needs to be on, okay? We'll just have a few slow pulls of that just to move it a little bit. It just helps the oil circulate round the piston before we actually fire it up. Okay, so everything's where it should be. I think there's enough fuel in there. I'll just give it a go, see if it'll fire up without it flying off the table. It's a bit difficult sitting down. When you stood up, you've got pressure on the top, haven't you? But we'll have a go. Oh, maybe not. Let's have another go. Ha! I know what we've done. Spot the deliberate mistake there, folks. Look down the bottom corner. When we started working on this, we made sure that the fuel tap was on off, right? So we've got to turn the fuel tap back to on, yeah? We'll give this a pump through. I thought there was fuel in it when it was up in the ball there, but it obviously wasn't, was it? So we'll turn that back round. The fuel tap's now on, and we'll give it another go. Oh, that's it. We've got some compression now. There we go. Right. Right, that's it. That's all up and running then. Right, that's always a good one when you start up procedure. You got it on choke, you got it on run. Make sure the fuel filler cap's turned, or the fuel is turned on, and that's on to open and not close. Okay, so that's just about it. Right, all you got to do is put the cover back on, but you don't really need me to show you how to do that. You've seen it all before, just as we took it off. So that's about it. Just remember, 16mm socket then for getting the spark plug in and out, and the actual spark plug number again is a CMR6A. So CMR6A. That little air filter in there, give it a tap out. If it is dusty, you can give it a wash through, but make sure it's dry before you put it back on, and make sure that the oil is more towards the full than the empty. Okay, it just saves you a lot of bother getting through. So there you go. I hope that was of use to somebody. We'll do another video on troubleshooting with these machines, because I know some people do have a bit of bother sometimes, but if that hasn't solved your problems, we'll do a different video. So give me the thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the bell as well if you can, so you get notified every single time we do one of these videos. Anything nice to say, anything at all really about these machines, put it down in the comments section below. I'll try and get back to each and every one of you when I can. Follow me across all the social media channels as well. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm Jimmy the Mower. I'll catch you on the next one.